That's a good idea. I should have brought my weighted blanket. That would have been helpful. That's okay. Notes for next time. We'll just make some notes for how we can do better. Oh my goodness, we got so many exciting goodies for you all today. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome.
How can you see other people?
They will need to turn on their videos, I believe.
Oh, okay, there's another person. Now I see
Okay,
you.
welcome, welcome.
Welcome. All right.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, welcome.
Awesome. Hello, it's so good to see you all. I wonder. Let's see. There we go. I get it. If you slide, at least on the way my app is, if you slide, then it shows everybody. At first, I was only seeing one person at a time. I get it. Awesome. Okay, well, welcome. We're going to go ahead and start with the meditation, and people will join as they're able, and then we'll dive into the deep goodies of the day. All right. So, does everybody have an aromatherapy tool of some kind? It can really just be anything that smells good. It doesn't have to be intended for aromatherapy necessarily, but anything that smells good. Got a smell good thing? Were you able to... Hi, Haley. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome, everybody. We'll just give it like a minute, and then we'll dive into the meditation.
What happened?
But Javier, she disappeared. But we will be starting with a little aromatherapy meditation. So if you have something handy that smells good, if you don't, we can still participate in the meditation. Not a problem at all. Yappity doodah. We'll just give it another minute and we'll dive on in. Hello, welcome back.
I'm not touching my computer screen.
Oh, this is amazing.
I'm like...
Technology, right? Technology, man. Oh, well, thank you all so much for being here. I am so excited for this opportunity to explore consciousness. It's really going to be an amazing time, and I just want to thank you for being here. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we got another friend. Hello, my other friend. Hi, friend. Hello, my friend. Welcome, my friend. That's my friend. My friend. Welcome, my friend. To the girl, peace is gonna two faces. To the girl, yeah, the peace is gonna two. All right, let's dive on in. Everybody got your aromatherapy tool handy? We're going to start with something called bilateral breathing, and this is a coping tool I've created. And what it does is it stimulates both brain hemispheres alternately through stimulation of smell, and in doing that it can help bring the brain into a more integrated place of functionality. Sometimes one side's a little more active than another. Actually, I think I can do something. Hang on, guys. I want to... Ha! I did it. Yeah, good job. Okay. She is our official cheerleader. She keeps all the adults wanting to do adult things. Otherwise, we're just like... Gotta have a cheerleader in your own brain. Okay. So bilateral breathing, it is a tool we created that helps stimulate both brain hemispheres, one and then the other, back and forth to create this nice flow so that the whole brain becomes engaged. When we're experiencing some difficult clues of consciousness or symptoms of mental health battles, it's usually because the brain's having a hard time working with itself, and our aspects of consciousness are like, what's going on? And so anytime we can take the initiative to bring our brain into a place of presence and functionality so that it's working together instead of against itself, we're going to experience some relief and some power and some presence and just a lot of beautiful things. So, everyone got your magical handy dandy aromatherapy tool of some kind?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a hand over our left nostril and breathe in through our right, and then keep our hand there as we inhale and exhale. And once we've done a full breath cycle of inhale and exhale, then we switch sides and put our hand pressing the other nostril so that it's kind of shut, and then use our other hand to have the tool under the open nostril, and we'll just go back and forth. And it doesn't matter if we're not in sync and doing the exact same nostril or whatever, but we'll do this practice together and just breathe through it. And the deeper you can get your breaths to be, that's beautiful. You can kind of pause at the top, like inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Anything you can do to deepen your breath in this process, gradually meeting yourself where you're at, like how are you naturally breathing? How can I make it just a little bit deeper? And really just relax into this process and congratulate yourself for being present today. Like, of all the things in all the world, you are here now, stepping into your personal power, daring to rise up into to befriend the consciousness that carries you. You're doing the things, you're showing up, and your consciousness will honor that. It might not be an immediate feeling of, man, I got this. But like, it's going to plant seeds to grow your consciousness so you feel like you have power to embrace your everyday healing journey of life. So just kind of be gentle and congratulate yourself while we do this exercise. All right, so we got our hand, our nostril, and breathing. We're just going to do it together. Feel free to go at your own pace and what pace your body's asking you to breathe at, and just tune in and be present with yourself. And if you don't have an aromatherapy tool, you're more than welcome to do this practice still, even if there isn't a smell. Just breathing and bringing our presence to the breath and alternating can bring a lot of power into our consciousness. Really just taking this opportunity to tune in to our inner being and establish presence before we deep dive into some super neuroscience-y awesomeness. We'll just go a couple more rounds and then we'll shift our focus. Just feel the relief as your muscles relax and you establish presence with this moment. Let's do one more big breath. All right. Just gently bring your focus back to the present moment. Give yourself a nice big hug. Congratulate yourself for this grounding exercise. Just establish this presence and dare to offer love to your inner being. Okay, we're going to do one more brief little grounding exercise. This one saves me quite frequently. It's called brain loop stimulation, and it's something that my chiropractor taught me. And it's fascinating because I've seen a lot of chiropractors before, and I never met someone who has so much knowledge about the brain. He actually went to school longer than the average chiropractor and has as much training as a brain surgeon, and so it's just amazing the things he knows. So go ahead and take your right hand and place it on your left earlobe. And take a deep breath and just gently rub your earlobe so that it creates a sound in your left ear. What we're doing here is using the left brain hemisphere to move our right hand to stimulate our left ear and create sound in our right brain hemisphere. So it's literally creating a brain stimulation loop. And just go ahead and bring yourself back to center. And we'll take a few deep breaths and then we'll stimulate the other side of our brain. Just one more big deep breath. All right. Then go ahead and take your left hand and bring it up to your right earlobe. And let's go ahead and do the same thing. You're just going to gently rub your earlobe so that it creates a sound, a very slight sound, audible in your right ear. And here we're using the right brain hemisphere to move our left hand and stimulate our right ear to create sound in our left brain hemisphere. It's just the coolest thing ever. So this can be really handy for any kind of battle you're going through, because anything that brings our brain into a more engaged functionality can really help. Go ahead and bring yourself back to center, and again, just congratulate yourself. Like, of all the places in all the world and all the things you could be doing, you're here learning about consciousness. That's pretty freaking miraculous, if you ask me. So just give yourself a little grace and a little joy and a little good job, friends, inside. And awesome, wonderful. Okay, so we are gonna deep dive. I'm still new to this app, so let's see. I'm gonna just play here. I wasn't sure if we should. Thank you so much. It's a lot of fun. I think what I might do, you guys can let me know. Is it distracting to hear the background sound from other people's videos? If so, we can mute everyone, and then you can just unmute yourself as you want to talk. Or if it's not distracting, then we can leave it as is. What do you guys think?
I feel like in calls I've been in the past, this works well, so mute everyone else.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
yeah, I
cool.
feel like that's probably good.
Okay, cool. Then we'll give that a try. Does everyone know how to unmute themselves if they want to say something? Do you know how to hit that button on your app?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Okay. Okay, wonderful.
The button causing the problem, yes.
What, sorry?
It's only the button causing the problem.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone, but if you're having a hard time unmuting yourself, you can always just wave at me, and I'll swipe and keep an eye on everyone's video so we can see if anyone's having difficulty, because I can mute people, I think. Let me go. Yes, I can mute people from my end, so mute. Let's see. All and new participants will be muted. Allow participants unmute themselves. Yes, that is correct. Okay. All right. So I'm still on. You guys are off. Feel free to unmute if you have a question or a comment or anything. I have a lot of amazing info to share, but I also want this to be a two-way conversation. So if there's anything that you want to add or, ask a clarifying question about anything, please do feel free to chime in. But otherwise, we're just going to cruise. And then about halfway through, we will take a little break and then hop back on here on another call. Okay, so does everyone have, and if not, that's obviously fine too, but it will be helpful. Does everyone have your nifty workbook? It could be on a computer you're looking at. It could be printed. But having it handy, awesome. You guys got your nifty little papers. It'll be handy. Okay, wonderful. So we're just gonna dive in here. Okay. So, consciousness. What is consciousness, and why the heck does it even matter that we learn about it, right? So, everything that we experience comes from consciousness. The way we react to things, the way we perceive things, the way we desire things, the way we understand things, the way we comprehend things, the way our memories exist, and the way that we refer to our memories. All of these different components of our unfolding life experience occur through consciousness. And so, anything that's anything to do with our experience or ourselves or the way we're experiencing and interacting with the world has to do with consciousness. And understanding consciousness can give us power as we move through this unfolding life experience where we're being here and also being out here, and we're investing in here and we're interacting out here, and all these different things. We can really have power as we move through our unfolding life experience when we understand our consciousness. A few fascinating facts about consciousness. 95% exists beyond awareness. So we got our handy dandy diagram here. We worked really hard on this. We're very proud. The heart is pretty mathematically accurate, roughly, of course. Math isn't my strong suit, but we did the math, ish, to being about 5% of consciousness. So on this board, you can see the entirety of the board. There's all this other stuff going on in the purple and the teal, and that red part is the only part that we directly know about. So there's a lot happening inside of us affecting our experience, perceptions of self, everything, and we don't have direct access to it. And so 95% of consciousness operates beyond direct and immediate awareness. The second really fun fact is that 80% of our decision making comes from our backdrop of our brain beyond all awareness. And so we're up here in the front of our brain like, okay, let me think this through. Let me think about this. Let me get to these, variables of this decision-making task. And 80% of the way we make our decision has nothing to do with what we're doing up here. 80%. 80% of the way we make our decisions in everyday life, big and small, has to do with things existing beyond our direct awareness. So that's like a pretty big deal for self-understanding and moving through the world with power and all sorts of stuff. And then the other super fun fact is that an estimated 93% of language processing, so everything I'm saying right now, 93% of it has nothing to do with the words that I'm saying. And this is a big deal too, because the way that we communicate with other people is a big part of being a person in the world, right? Like communication, everyday interactions, it's like a staple of the human existence. Like you can't, generally, usually, typically, you don't really have much of a life if you're not interacting with other people. It's usually just a part of existence to some degree. And 93% of the language processing has nothing to do with the words that are being said. And so this understanding is important to keep in mind as we're extending compassion to ourselves and moving through our life experience with awareness and all these different things. So, consciousness. Let's start from the basis. This body thing. This thingamabob, this thing here, right? So we'll just start there. And it's represented by the purple backdrop of this diagram. And that represents our unconscious states, the unconscious states of our body. Yeah, too. I know though, right? This is fun. I'm a teacher. Yes, you are, baby. We used to play school when we were little, so this was just every childhood dream coming to life. So our unconscious body states are filled with miracles. Absolute, irrefutable, mind-boggling, awe-striking, wonder-filled, overwhelming, indescribable miracles. From the time that you're a little bitty baby, you begin as sheets of cells. Like, think about you right now. Like, I'm a person and I've got this life and I've got these thoughts and I've got these feelings and I've got these stories and I've got these goals and I've got this stuff and I've got this stuff. All of that began as little sheets of cells. Like, let that boggle your mind. Allow that to provoke wonder within you. Like, let that be a big deal to you. Allow the miracles of your own existence to be a big deal. And we're celebrating. You began as sheets of cells. Like, what? And we begin as fluid. This physicality wasn't even a thing. We were literally just this little glob of fluid in these sheets of cells that began folding and evolving and creating these miracles. Like, it is so profoundly beautiful. I know, I've got all sorts of fun notes on. Yeah, it's just beautiful and miraculous. So our whole existence is miraculous. The way that our body functions is miraculous. Right now, our heart is beating, our eyes are blinking, everything is flowing. There's muscles and nerves and bones and tissues and cells and blood flow and fluid flow, cerebral spinal fluid flow. There's all these things happening and we don't even know about it. We don't have to think about it. We don't even have to worry about it. It's not something we have to pay attention to. Like, we're out here like, oh my goodness, like, I gotta focus and I've got all this stuff to do. And we're only able to worry about that because there's a million miracles happening beyond the scenes. Like, let that boggle you. Let that bring you comfort, because no matter what you're going through, you have a team of millions of cells that are fighting for you. And you don't have to do anything but accept their support. You know, maybe show up for your body and do a little self-care or whatever. But if you don't do that, your cells are still going to be fighting for you. Like, that's miraculous. And so if you're ever feeling alone, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, you just take a big, deep breath and realize you have infinite miracles inside of you already, and they are always fighting for your best interest. They are always on your side. So we have the gift of unconscious miracles, and it creates all these gifts, like the fact that we can hear sound right now. There are these microscopic, invisible sound waves traversing through the atmosphere and provoking a vibration in our ear that's being processed through all these complex things, and then it sends this electronic type signal to our brain that translates as a message so we can hear words being spoken by some person across the world. Like, if that's not miraculous, I don't know what is. Like, we have infinite miracles inside of us already. That's already what we are. You are already a miracle. The gift of unconscious miracles is a beautiful thing. The gift of imagination, the fact that we even can worry about stuff. You know where worry comes from, right? Our miraculous, vivid imagination. And that's a beautiful thing. It can be misused at times, right? If we kind of just let it flow automatically and we don't harness it. But the ability to imagine, regardless of how it's being used, is still a miracle. The gift of imagination is a miracle. The gift of hearing sound is a miracle. The gift of connection, the fact that I'm a person here and I'm a person here and you're a person there, and we're somehow interacting between the atmosphere without like oozing into one another. Like, the fact that we can have this connection with individuality, it is miraculous. Visual eyesight, just a gift, a miraculous gift. The fact that we can breathe. Like, I'm doing all this talking, and while I'm doing this talking, my body is still breathing, and I don't even know about it. Like, it's so trippy to me. The gift of self-sensing, just knowing who we are. Like, if you're interacting with the world and you're like, oh, I'm still a person. Okay, like, you don't have to think about that. That's already happening to some degree. The gift of homeostasis, the gift of memory. And memories can be overwhelming at times, but without memory, we wouldn't know who we are or what we're doing or why we exist or anything. If we didn't have memory, you wouldn't know that this thing I'm sitting in is a chair. You'd just be like, oh my God, it's like this weird thing with a strange shape and I don't know what you do with it and I don't understand its function. I don't get it. Like, without memory, we wouldn't know anything. We wouldn't have the ability to understand just basic things. Like, I wouldn't know that this is hair without memory. I wouldn't know how to speak without memory. Like, all of these backdrop things come from memory. So even when memories can be overwhelming, they are a gift at the end of the day. The gift of cerebral spinal fluid. Okay, everybody take a nice, big, deep breath. In that moment of breathing, Your entire inner being was just bathed in cerebral spinal fluid. Cerebral spinal fluid was pumped up, smooshed over your brain like a fountain, dribbled down, and then it went all the way down to the bottom of your spine as you exhaled. You just bathed your inner being in cerebral spinal fluid by taking a breath. That is a miracle. We are endless miracles. There's infinite aspects about the body that's just profound and miraculous and never ending. And anything that overwhelms us, we can just take a moment of pause and tune in, because we are already miraculous. That is already who we are at the core of our consciousness. Okay, part 2. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, this is my favorite part, though. I know, we get to talk about you guys. Okay, I get to use our handy-dandy diagram. Okay, so our subconscious, what the heck is this thing, right? So all of these miracles, and then there's all these unconscious body states, miracles, and then over here we have our awareness, which is represented by that little red heart. So we got these unconscious body states of miracles, and then we've got this conscious awareness of things we directly know about. We can kind of associate this with our mind and this with our body. What happens in between those things? That's our subconscious. Subconscious connects our unconscious bodily states and our conscious mind. There's kind of this expanse of consciousness in between, and you can kind of call that landscape the subconscious. And so within the subconscious, there are several elements. The core components being parts, memories, associations, and attachments. And those 4 main things comprise the subconscious landscape of who we are. So how does the subconscious develop? Well, at first it starts with our unconscious miracles. We've got this super trippy, miraculous, strange brain where even thousands of years into existence, human beings are still trying to understand it, right? Just infinite miracles. And so our brain develops from the back to the front, from the bottom up. So our back brain here starts developing, and then it comes up this way. So in this diagram, nifty handy dandy diagram, this is associated with the back of our brain, and this is associated with the front of our brain. So the hind brain, it shows up backwards for you guys. My phone doesn't flip words. It'll show right side up on the recording. That's good. The hind brain, the cerebellum, is what first starts developing. So that's that little top part there. And in that process, our attachments begin developing. And for that, we've got these nifty little pink things. So our hindbrain begins developing, and then our attachments start developing. Attachments are the part that connects nature and nurture. Our neurophysiology only develops with sustenance. Like, of all the creatures in the world, we are the slowest developing. Like, there's other little babies that are born and within hours they're like running around, right? We take a while to develop because we are such complex creatures. And through that extensive process where it takes years and years to become self-sustaining, attachments are the things that help to shape our neurophysiological development and connect nature, which is the unconscious miracles that already exist, and nurture, which is kind of the things that start to make us into who we are as we develop, beyond just basic functionality. And so we have our hindbrain, and then we kind of develop from the back towards the front, and then the front brain is the slowest to develop. And in that process, there's attachment development. You like all my little cards? Attachment development. And so the attachment starts to grow the subconscious. And it kind of goes in this loop that's represented in this kind of general direction. So when we're born, and that first moment that we meet the gaze of our mother as a little newborn infant, this starts to happen. These pink lines start to happen. And then when we're a few months old, let's see. Oh, nifty. Love it. Sorry, I got a little notification. That's cool. Okay, so, well, the attachments start developing, and then a few months in, these attachments start developing, and then about 1 year old or so, these attachments start developing, and then these attachments start developing. And the result of that process of development is subconscious parts. Ta-da! We'll just bump that up there. We've got our part here. So this top one is the foundation of our subconscious. It's the very first part of consciousness to develop. It's called a Moppet part or Moppet parts. And Moppet means an endearingly small child. So not just like some kid, but like the cutest little kid you've ever seen on the whole face of the earth, just like melt inside upon seeing it. Moppets are an endearingly small child. So a Moppet part is home to our inner child. It's the first part of consciousness to develop. Parts develop through attachments. Parts exist beyond all direct and immediate awareness. And parts can be considered energetic communicators between the conscious mind and the unconscious body. Moppets are the first to develop, and they're associated with the hindbrain and the right brain. I don't have the things. So on this on this diagram, this is the right brain hemisphere, and this is the left brain hemisphere. And this is the front brain, and this is the back brain. And so Moppet parts are associated with the hindbrain, the back brain, and the right brain hemisphere. And Moppet parts are embodiers of love. They embody love. And so they develop through experiences of receiving love. One example is like, if someone ever gives you a compliment, your ability to feel that compliment rather than feel like changing the subject or, pushing it away or returning it, like saying, oh no, you're great too. That moment of just fully absorbing, yes, thank you, yes. Receiving a compliment goes through the Moppet part directly. Moppet parts are embodiers of love, and they develop through experiences of receiving love. Yeah, too, that's me! I know it is, honey buns. She's like, we're talking about you. Moppet parts are home to our inner child. Our next part of consciousness to develop is our nightingale parts. And they're over here. And you can also see on this diagram how far away parts are from the awareness. So if our awareness is right here, this part is the farthest away from the awareness. And then this part is not quite as far, but there's still a little bit of distance. And then the next part to develop is our normal part of consciousness. Oh, yeah, I know. Just want to demonstrate this part. But you can see that this part is closer. This is the closest part of consciousness to, it's stuck, to the awareness. And so nightingale parts develop, they are givers of love. They're associated with the right brain hemisphere. They're givers of love. And so when you're a baby, at first, you're just receiving love. That's all you're doing. But then eventually there's a point where you start to reciprocate love. And you're not just staring at your mom who's giving you love. You're starting to return the eye gaze. And then when you start to grow older, you start to return the love. You say, I love you too. Here's a flower I picked for you. I cleaned up my toys because I know that you appreciate that. You're giving love. And those experiences of giving or extending or reciprocating love are what develop the nightingale parts of consciousness in our right brain hemisphere. Okay, so we're halfway through the subconscious development. How y'all doing? Y'all with me? Give me a little thumbs up skis, if you will. Thumbs up skis. Awesome. Everyone's sticking with me. So I'm not losing you. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. So we're just going to keep plowing through. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. We'll have a little group discussion at the end to kind of bring everything full circle. I know it's a lot, but it's some goodies, and hopefully the outline can kind of help guide you through the process. Wonderful, wonderful. They're my guinea pigs. We're changing the world and it starts with you. Yes. That's my friends. Most excited. So the next thing is our normal parts of consciousness. And normal parts are associated with our forebrain or our front brain and our left brain hemisphere. So those upper ones there, right brain, and then these parts over here are going to be left brain. So normal parts are very, very unique creature. They are observers of love. And so they don't necessarily directly engage. They're not feeling the feelings. They're not actively participating. They're really just observing. And so when there's observation, there isn't, the direct engagement. You're almost a bystander. And so it's fascinating how the bystander, the more passive rather than active one within the subconscious feelings and all the stuff that's going on, is the one that's closest to our forebrain and our conscious awareness. I found that pretty interesting. Normal parts develop through experiences of unconscious observation, particularly related to human interaction and the spectrum of normalcy. So we all have this concept of what normal is, right? And it doesn't have to be like a specific thing. Sometimes it's a general thing, like it's normal to go to sleep at night. Like how do we know that? How do we know that we're not supposed to sleep when the sun's out and be up when the moon's out? It's because we've unconsciously observed the normalcy around us. And so the way that other people interact externally with themselves and with one another was something that we started to notice and create an understanding of what things are, what people are, the way you conduct yourself, all these sorts of things. That all went directly through the normal part of consciousness. All right, my friends. All right. All right. Oh, I guess I can put this up, huh? Yeah. That's a Muppet part. And this is let's see. This is a nightingale part. Okay. And this is a normal part. Hurrah. Okay. Last but certainly not least are the guardian parts of consciousness associated with our left brain hemisphere. Guardian parts are some fierce babies, some fierce warriors. Guardian parts are protectors of love that develop through experiences of defending, shielding, or protecting love for loved ones, interpersonally, externally, and intrapersonally, internally. So when you're at that stage of your childhood terrible twos and someone says, I want to play with that toy. You said, no, it's my toy. This is mine. I'm not sharing. This is mine. That's a guardian part being activated because you love this toy and you don't want the love that you share with this experience to be threatened by an outside source. And so you are guarding yourself. You are protecting your love. You are defending and shielding this interaction that you love. So that's just one example of guardian parts at the early age. Okay, so we've gone through the development of parts. This is where guardian parts are. It's over here on the other little corner of things. Guardian parts. Okay, so we've gotten through the development of parts. Now, the question is Zoom going to kick us off the chat? There's a time limit on it, and so that's why we had two separate calls, but the notification that came up was like, congratulations, we're waiving your time limit. I wasn't sure if that meant on this call or my next call, so we're just going to keep going, and if it kicks us off, we'll take it as a cue to go have a break, and we'll come back with a link for the second call. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. So just kind of floating that there, and we're going to figure this out together. Yeah, who knows? Nobody knows. Okay, so we've gone through the development of parts. Now we're going to explore who are parts? And briefly, before we go into that, I'll add a little clarifying piece about attachments. It talks about it a bit in your workbook. It has a little more explanation about some of these things, about parts and stuff. A nice little acronym for understanding the baseline of love, which is the baseline of attachments. And so attachments are those bonding experiences with caregivers from a young age. And so whether it's a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, a guardian, a grandparent, or someone even like that comes around frequently. It could be like a neighbor or just a close friend who's just kind of there all the time when you're growing up. Those kind of people help shape our attachments. And so attachments are really just the process of our unconscious, subconscious growing an ability to experience the world through this relational stuff. And those interactions help shape the development of our neurophysiology, which helps shape our consciousness. So this whole thing here, this whole part of our subconscious, or this whole part of our consciousness, which is our subconscious, a pretty decent chunk of things, right? A pretty decent chunk of things. This whole thing is love. This whole thing is love. You are love at the core of your being. Love is already who and what you are. Love is already your core essence. Your subconscious parts are embodiers of love, givers of love, observers of love, and protectors of love. That is who and what you are at the core of your consciousness. That's already the truth of who you are. You are love, light, and miracles. And that is the truth of who you are. So who are parts? Kind of just getting into their, the more characteristic personality attributes. Moppet parts, these little, I need a pointer. These little, okay, so we'll start with the Moppet part, which is this, that's funny, I can check it. Moppet parts at the top of the screen. Moppet parts. So the first to develop hindbrain, right brain hemisphere, they are trusting, loving, faith-filled. They're playful and imaginative. They're empathetic and innocent and open-hearted. And this is the core of our inner child. Our inner child is a huge basis for our consciousness. Everything develops after that. Our inner child is the baseline of our whole consciousness development. And our Moppet parts are just these trusting, beautiful, just playful, innocent, creative, imaginative. They're very trusting. They're filled with faith. You tell them something, they are going to believe it. There are these beautiful aspects of our consciousness that embody our inner child throughout our entire lives. They're beautiful. And their core desire, the thing that they need to heal and thrive, are imaginative play and moments of awe and wonder. Those two things are the root core desire of Moppet parts that help them to heal and thrive. So anytime we choose imaginative play, whether we go play in nature, whether we go play on a playground at a park, whether we stop and do a meditation exercise where we're visualizing something that feels good, we are engaging our Moppet parts of consciousness and healing them so that they can thrive. And any moments of awe and wonder. The other night, there was a cloud that came down really low. And so it was the middle of the night, it was really cold, and the entire atmosphere was just filled with like a fog. And it was like a cloud that had come down. And so when you look out, you can't see anything. Like when you're in a cloud, you don't see the cloud. Like that's always something that interested me. You're in a cloud, you can't actually see it. You can only see it from a distance. So it's kind of its own miracle. And so we're standing in a cloud and I couldn't see it, but I could smell it. And it actually connected with a memory for me personally of riding Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland when I was a kid. Because you go underground and there's kind of this like underground foggy atmosphere. And so it immediately connected me with a memory, which I found fascinating. I couldn't see the cloud, but I could smell the cloud. Like just a miracle. So we're standing there and we have our phone out And we turn on our phone flashlight and we hold the phone up to the air. Like there's nothing there, it's just air, right? And we saw thousands of microscopic particles of water swirling around, and they swam like fish swim, like a school of fish in the water where it's like a million of them, but like it looks like one moving object because they're going in unison. And so it's just like this waving thing in unison of these thousands of particles of water condensation floating in the air as this cloud existed near the ground. And every other part of my consciousness was like, it's cold, it's time for bed, we have stuff to do. Like, there was nothing in me that wanted to be in that moment from my other parts of consciousness. But we tapped into our Moppet parts. And we said, let's create space for a moment of awe and wonder. And all the anxieties and all the worries and all the discomfort and all the other things started to melt away as we brought our Moppet part into the front seat of this experience, even though our Moppet part is the farthest away from our conscious awareness you could possibly get within the subconscious. And this moment of awe and wonder was healing. We're just standing there, and just to remind us of the miracle, we'd put the phone down and look out, and like, there's nothing there. It's just air. Like, it's just air. Like, I'm not actually seeing anything. And you hold this flashlight up, and you can see the microscopic particles swirling around. And it was just this beautiful, miraculous moment of awe and wonder. And it was directly healing our inner child. So a fun exercise you guys can do, if it's ever cold, you can take your phone flashlight or any little flashlight and put it up around your eye level and take a big deep breath and exhale through your mouth. If it's cold enough, the breath will become visible against the backdrop of night, and you can see the millions of microscopic particles that just came out of your body through an exhalation. It is miraculous. And so you don't have to wait for a low-hanging cloud to come to your neighborhood. If it's cold enough, you can just and hold a light up and just look at your breath before you go to bed and just be in awe and wonder at the miracle that you are. And create space for a moment of awe and wonder at seeing something come from your body and leave into the atmosphere where there's all these different particles and they're dancing and swirling and creating this miraculous thing that happens all the time that you normally can't see. You can just create moments of awe and wonder for yourself. You heal your Moppet parts of consciousness. Okay, our next parts, yonder, we've got nightingale parts. Da-da-da. Nightingales are very much like our caregivers. Like, anytime we want to give love, like, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna make a birthday card for somebody. I love giving love. You know, there's some creative, playful aspects that would be Moppet parts too. But the process of actually giving this gift to somebody, like, I'm purchasing this thing and I'm wrapping it up and then I get to give it to someone and experience this miraculous moment of someone receiving my love that I am giving. Their Moppet part is receiving love from my nightingale part, and we're having this beautiful right brain interaction of healing love. That is coming from our nightingale parts. Nightingale parts are generous, kind, considerate, thoughtful. They are selfless. They are self-sacrificing. They are willing to compromise. Those moments where, like, I really don't want to do this thing, but I love you, so okay, let's do it. You know, that's your nightingale part contributing to the conversation of consciousness and allowing you to move through this interaction with grace and ease. Nightingale parts are compassionate, they're nurturing, they're attentive, they're acquiescent, which is a beautiful word that I didn't know what it meant, but it fit perfectly, so I added the definition in there just in case you also don't know what it means, because I totally didn't know. Acquiescent means when you're ready to accept something without protest. You're just like kind of giving in to the wishes of others. And nightingale parts, their core desire, what they need to heal and thrive, two things. One is appreciation. They are giving so much love all the time. internally and externally. And they just want to be appreciated. They just want the love that they're giving to be seen and acknowledged and appreciated. And the second thing Nightingale parts need to heal and thrive is emotional safety, which is really felt in the emotional atmosphere of things. That feeling of, I'm allowed to feel the feelings. Emotional safety. Okay, so those are the parts of consciousness in our right brain hemisphere. We are going to move on to our left brain hemisphere. Normal parts of consciousness. We got down here, and they are closest to the conscious awareness, but as far as importance goes within conscious explorations, they are lower, you will notice. So, normal parts. Normal parts are descriptive and observant. Normal parts experience the explicit of life, while the other parts experience the implicits. So explicit and implicit language is something that I'll be teaching about in a separate workshop, but in summary, the implicit things are the sensations, the nonverbal, the emotions, the body sensations, all the little things that happen in our miraculous consciousness that's not the direct words being happening right here. This is a very explicit experience. I'm outside, I'm external, I'm saying words, linear things. This is explicit. But all the other many things, the sensations, the feels, all the massive amounts of things, that's all implicit. So normal parts kind of connect our other parts with our conscious awareness. Our other parts are doing all of this feeling and emotional sensations and all these things and memories and ideas and urges and impulses and concepts and arguments and all these things. And our normal parts kind of observe that and then send those messages to our conscious awareness. Like, I notice that this part is feeling this. I'm noticing a memory from this part. I'm noticing an association where a part's making meaning over here. And kind of just relaying things. So there's not like a lot of emotional engagement, but they're very, very active within the operations of consciousness. Yeah, too. That's what I said, though. I know, you guys are doing a great job. Don't even worry about a thing. I got you. So normal parts need their core desire, what they need to heal and thrive. Two things. Personalized perspective of normalcy. So they are the ones who kind of create the concepts of normalcy because they're doing all the unconscious observations about the way other people are doing the normal stuff, and they kind of internalize that, and they're like, this is what normal looks like, everybody. This is the way that normal is, okay? And that's coming from the normal part of consciousness, because normal really just means conforming to a standard, something that's usual or typical or expected, just kind of the average, usual, typical, expected state or condition of things. So it really has to do with a relative thing of observing what's happening. And so everyone has their own version of normalcy. Normalcy is comprised of all sorts of things. What is allowed, what is encouraged, what is tolerated, the time you wake up in the morning, the time you go to bed at night, the way that you eat, the way that you sit, the way that you speak, the way that you express yourself. All these different things come from a position of what is normal. Is it normal to cry in public? Is it normal to run around screaming in public? Are those normal things? Are those allowed things? And, usually that's not what we notice. And when it is something we notice people reprimanding that, right? So we kind of unconsciously learn, I'm not supposed to go around expressing my feelings super vulnerably and sporadically. Like, that's not a normal thing that people generally do. So if I do that, that's abnormal, and that sends off alarm signals in my brain. And so being able to create a personalized definition of normalcy helps us heal the normal parts, because then the normal parts can get back to doing what they do best and being a relay runner from our other subconscious parts to our awareness. Otherwise, they're going to work against each other, and the normal part is going to be here like, hey, this is what should be normal according to outside stuff. And our parts are going to be like, but we need a different normalcy in order to thrive, dude. And so there's going to be this discrepancy. And so healing and allowing normal parts to thrive really has to do a lot with personalizing our perspective of normalcy. One example is I always go out in public with my stuffed animals. And this specifically took over a year of brain rewiring to feel like I was allowed to do it. Every time I take them out, my thoughts would just be racing and I'd be so afraid, like, what if people see me? What if people judge me? And it wasn't just the explicit thought of, oh no, what if that happens? It was a full body sensation of terror. Like I was gonna be beaten alive if someone saw me carrying a stuffed animal. And I knew in my logical mind that wasn't the truth, but these parts were having this really intense reaction to this isn't what's normal. Holy crap, what if it's not allowed? And so we had to do some rewiring and explain that we're here for our consciousness. The whole world out there is an illusion from one perspective. Everyone's having their own unique experience of consciousness, and physicality only exists because of the miracles in our neurophysiology. At the end of the day, we're all energy. This all is made of energy, and it only exists as a physical stuff because of miracles, because our brain is processing this energetic experience in a particular way that creates a miraculous illusion of physicality. So we're all energy, and every person is having their own infinite, deep experience of consciousness where they're only aware of 5% of what's happening. And so when we decide what's normal and what's allowed, it shouldn't be coming from the illusion of our outside life. It should be coming from the truth of who we are in our inner being, always. And it's not easy, but it's worth it because we heal our consciousness when we choose to do this actively and intentionally. And so personalizing our perspective of normalcy helps to heal normal parts. For us, it is now normal in a full body way where my aspects of unconsciousness feel like it is normal to have a little stuffed elephant perched on our shoulder when we go shopping, when we go anywhere. If we go to the chiropractor's office, if we go to the park, if we go to the grocery store, if we go to the library, we have our little stuffed elephant perched on our shoulder, and we are no longer afraid of what anybody's going to say or think or how they're going to look at us. It doesn't even faze us anymore because we spent a year and a half rewiring the responses so that we had a new personalized perspective of normalcy for who we really are. And the second thing that helps normal parts heal and thrive is uninhibited self-expression. What is allowed? And this relates to the normalcy aspect. Am I allowed to say that I'm depressed, or are people going to freak out and feel the need to fix me or institutionalize me, or what is allowed? Am I really allowed to say, hey, I'm really dissociated right now. I can't actually see you right now. Is that allowed, or are people going to freak out and this and that, and it's not the definition of normalcy that's accepted? And so just creating space for uninhibited self-expression, just being honest about who we are and what we're going through. Hey, I feel like dancing right now. Yeah, I know it's random. Yeah, I know there's no music playing. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm not going to limit and reduce the way that I feel like expressing myself. That helps us heal. And it's related to, redefining normalcy for ourselves. So guardian parts, this little miraculous orange diamond thingy over here. Our guardian parts are assertive, they are vigilant, they are critical, they are defensive, they are persuasive, they are independent, they are sarcastic and intelligent, they are goal-oriented, they are timekeepers, they create judgments, explanations, and conclusions. They offer supporting evidence for internal or external debates. If someone says, I told you this thing the other day, and you respond with, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. That never happened. I remember everything, and I'm going to stand in this position. I'm going to articulate my position. I'm going to explain my position, and I am going to be assertive, and I am going to defend my stance, and I am independent because I don't need to be dependent on you, and because of that, I get to be in here in my position, and I'm intelligent, and I'm going to use these factual arguments, and we're going to... That's a guardian part. And so guardian parts have a very important role to play in the system. They are the core part that allows for us to be strong. All parts are strong in their own aspect, but for us to be strong and move through our life with physical and mental strength, we need our guardian parts. Without them, we would just be accepting whatever kind of love we get without standards. We would just be giving love all the time without boundaries, and we would just be observing the status quo without challenging it. Guardian parts play a very important role in our miraculous consciousness. And so guardian parts, their core desire, what they need to heal and thrive are two things. One is respect. They just need to know that they are respected. And thankfully, this can come from inside of us. Like if we're getting disrespect from out here, maybe we create boundaries and maybe we don't allow that in our life. Maybe we limit the energetic interactions with those types of things. But at the end of the day, we can offer ourselves respect and help heal our consciousness in that capacity. Guardian parts just need respect. And a lot of this comes in the way that we care for ourselves too. Like if I'm choosing food that feels good to eat, I'm not respecting my body and my body's needs and the sustenance that I'm worthy of, as one example. And so just taking that time to show respect and honor to our own selves can help guardian parts heal. And the second thing guardian parts need, their core desire, what helps them to heal and thrive, is physical safety. And I'm not just talking about, okay, no one's gonna like come up and point a gun to my head and murder me right now. I'm talking a safety that we can feel in our muscles. If our muscles are tense all the time, we're not feeling safe. And so physical safety is not just something we have externally. Obviously, that's a huge aspect of it. Like we can't feel safe in here if we're not safe here. It's a part of it. But that's not where the sense of safety comes from at the end of the day. It comes from inside of us. And so we have to feel safe internally, which is something we can sense through how our muscles are tensing and relaxing. If we can't relax the muscles in our body, there's a part of us that does not feel safe. And so creating space to allow for us to just feel physically safe is a huge way to help guardian parts of consciousness heal. Okay, so moving forward, how does all of this wrap up together and shape our identity? So identity is comprised of many things. Who am I? You know, what do I look like? What do I feel like? What's my clothing style? Where was I born? Those are external aspects of identity. And at the end of the day, they don't really matter. They don't really matter. It might be a way of understanding our physical existence, but they don't really matter to our identity as much as we think they do. Our identity comes from our self-ceptions, which is a new word that I've created. And it means perceptions and conceptualizations of self that create internalized identity along with a backdrop platform for understanding the world, the surrounding world. And this is in your outline. So self-ceptions is those backdrop things of how we perceive and conceptualize our own self that help create an understanding of the world. I understand that I'm a young woman and I've got this life stuff and this and that. I understand that I enjoy these things. I understand that I have these desires. I understand that I have these limitations. I understand that when I speak, there's usually this kind of response, and that's kind of something I associate with what's allowed and what's this. There's a bunch of other examples. But anything that has to do with our perception and conceptualization of who we are, that also creates a backdrop for understanding our surrounding world is a self-ception. And so self-ceptions come from our parts. They don't come from our conscious mind, and they don't entirely come from our unconscious body, they come from our subconscious. And so Moppet parts up here at the top and normal parts down here at the bottom of the diagram are the roots of self-ceptions. Everything we think about ourselves, everything we feel about ourselves, whether we feel like we're worthy, whether we feel like we're capable, whether we feel like we're allowed. All of those things come from our Moppet and normal parts of consciousness. So the top and bottom of the diagram, a nice little like vertical line here of roots of self-ceptions. Moppet parts are the unconscious roots of self-ception. So things that we don't really know about. Like if I feel anxiety towards a topic, it's not necessarily me being like, oh, I don't think this fits in with my perspective of normalcy. No, it's a sensation that's arising from my unconscious belief system about who I am that helps me understand my existence and the surrounding world I exist in. And it's coming from an unconscious root of self-ceptions. And then when I kind of get up in the morning and I'm like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do today? Okay, I've got this, and I've got all these different outlets of projecting and interacting with my sense of identity within the world around me. That kind of thing often comes from our normal part. Like, what am I supposed to be doing today? Well, I'm this kind of person, and this is who I am, and this is how I associate that aspect of me with the world. So these are the things I'm supposed to do because that's just who I am. So those kind of things are coming from the roots of self-ceptions. That's coming from the normal part. Then we have the protectors of self-ceptions. The ideas of who we are do not come from them directly. They provide supporting evidence and energies to help encourage the beliefs of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing and what the world is and stuff. And so our guardian parts are protectors of self-ceptions in the left brain hemisphere, and our nightingale parts are protectors of self-ceptions in the right brain hemisphere. And so we've got these beliefs from the normal parts, these beliefs from the Moppet parts, and then we've got our nightingale parts and our guardian parts in each brain hemisphere who are like, I'm rooting for you, I support you, I agree, I'm gonna just stand by these beliefs. And they're just showing up in these miraculous ways. So protectors of self-ceptions are nightingale and guardian parts, and that means they're going to do anything and everything they possibly can. Yeah, I know, right? To yeah, is that Robert? I know though, I wanted to. They're going to do everything they possibly can to support our self-ceptions and the parts that carry our self-ceptions. And so a big part of how self-ceptions are created is through the other aspects of the subconscious. So we've talked about parts. Now we have a few other things going on here. Let's see. Those are... Oh, okay. We don't have cards for them. Okay. I'm just going to point them. Okay. So we have our attachment development surrounding our subconscious. We have our subconscious parts, right? This part here, the outline edge of our subconscious in this diagram, all of these edges are memories. Memories and unconscious associations. They're memories. Memories are a big part of what connect our consciousness. It's how parts connect with one another. It's how we understand who we are. It's how we perceive the world. And of course, memories are shaped through experience. So a lot of our consciousness is shaped through experiences, for better or worse, right? And so there's a lot of different kinds of memories. There's memories that we know about. There's memories we don't know about. There's memories that we can talk about. There's memories that are sensational, and there's really no language to describe them because they're sensational. And so there's a lot of different kinds of memories, but all experiences become processed as memories. And so even if we don't consciously remember an experience, I promise you, a part of the consciousness does. I'm talking from the time you were a day old until the present. Every memory that's ever occurred in any capacity through your life experience is stored somewhere in your consciousness and affecting your everyday life experience without you directly knowing about it. And so the whole edges there are memories. That's what all that is. And then from memories, there are associations. And so you could kind of think of it like this outside edge here are all the memories. And then like imagine a line just inside of that here where it's like this. And those are all the associations that are made. Like, okay, this happened, so it must mean this, but in a very unconscious way. And so the way that we understand things, and again, the chair. How do I know that this is a chair? How do I even understand this? It's because I have all these different memories associated with a chair, and from the memories, an association was created so that I could consciously comprehend what this thing is and how I'm supposed to interact with it, when and why. Associations come from memories that are connected through our parts, who have developed through attachments. Okay, so got the memories, got the associations. Da-da-da! Now, magic. Awesome. We are on the last page of our outline, and then we'll open up the floor for some questions. So, ba-ba-da. I don't know if this is actually going to stick. So, what happens in this landscape? We've talked about the edges, right? What happens in this landscape? Why is the heart just floating out here, right? So, the heart is, last but not least, our conscious awareness. We have 3 core layers of our consciousness: our awareness, our subconscious, and our unconscious. And then within each of those are their own miracles, right? But there's kind of 3 core layers: our conscious awareness, our subconscious, and our unconscious. And so we are miracles, we are love, and we are light. Our conscious awareness brings what is unknown into the known. It brings the expanse of darkness within us. And I don't mean darkness as a bad thing. I simply mean a space that does not have light. There's no illumination. If you walk in a dark room, are you like, oh yeah, there's a table there, there's a chair there, if I walk here, it's going to be a clear path? No, you don't know, because there's no light. It's darkness. It's just this black abyss, and you don't know what's there. It's not a bad thing. It's just unknown, right? So the conscious awareness brings the unknown into the known. It brings the darkness into light. It goes into that dark room, and it has a flashlight, and it says, okay, this is what's going on here. I see, right? We are light. You are light. You are light. Love and miracles at the core of your consciousness. Light is who you are. There's a part of you whose sole job is to illuminate the unknown, is to bring the darkness into this expanse of light so that you can know it. Your conscious awareness is approximately 5% of the entirety of consciousness. So a pretty small part in comparison to the expanse, but it's the one part that we have direct and immediate awareness of. It's the only part that we have direct and immediate awareness of. And so that's kind of the place that we start to assert our power, which is another topic for another time. About 5% of our consciousness, it's associated with our mind. Our experience of mind comes through our awareness, as we're observing all the different things as they become activated and messages are sent. So between our memories, our associations, our attachments, and our parts, there are, I don't know if it's going to stay. Yay, it's staying. There are subconscious neural pathways. And you can just draw little squigglies all over. There's a squiggly that is going down here. There's a squiggly that's connecting here. There's a squiggly connecting here. And those are subconscious neuropathways. So there's energetic neuropathways within your brain that are connecting these aspects of your consciousness and sending messages from those aspects of yourself beyond awareness into awareness. Which brings us to our final aspect of discussion, which is communication within consciousness. We have a few different types of things we experience. So through the subconscious neural pathways, which is all these different energetic things going on there, connecting our awareness with these other aspects of our subconscious, are thought forms. Thought forms are the unconscious messages from our subconscious parts, our memories, and our associations that are traveling to our awareness. Those are thought forms. Thought responses are the communication we consciously create in here that travel through those pathways back to our parts, memories, and associations. So thought forms travel from the subconscious to the awareness. Thought responses travel from the awareness to the subconscious. And then farther away from our awareness, we have emotional sensations and somatic sensations. And to represent these lovely things, we've got some colorful little toys here. These beautiful, shiny, jazzy, colorful, entwined, dancing little magical pipe cleaners are emotional sensations. And these guys, straightforward and kwaja, are these are emotional sensations. I don't know if I even said that right. These are emotional sensations, and these are somatic sensations. Emotional sensations are just any kind of emotion, those feelings that we got. Sorrow, joy, grief, overwhelm, exhaustion, depression, excitement, joy, ecstasy, happiness, connection, peace. Any kind of emotional sensation is these guys. And then somatic sensations are body sensations, so things that we feel in our body, like muscle tension is one example. Our muscles tensing and relaxing is a somatic sensation. So, emotional sensations. Oh, oops. I'm afraid of that. I went through my whole battery. I'll have to go grab my phone charger. Emotional sensations. Yeah, I'm going to do that right now, actually. I'm just going to give you all a moment to pause. I'm going to be right back and grab my charger. All right. I was not expecting that. Okay, I'm just going to turn it on its side so it can charge. All right, everybody. So, thought forms, thought responses, then emotional sensations are communication from our parts. Let me tilt that down a little bit. From our parts to our unconscious bodily states. From our parts to our unconscious bodily states. They go from our parts in the subconscious down into our unconscious bodily states. Emotional sensations are communication from subconscious parts to our unconscious states. And then somatic sensations are the other way. It's the unconscious states communicating to our subconscious. So our body being like, yo, subconscious, I got something to tell you. Okay. So there's communication happening all over the place. Our unconscious states are talking to our subconscious parts. Our subconscious parts are talking to our unconscious states. Our subconscious parts are talking to our conscious awareness, and our conscious awareness is talking to our subconscious parts. All three layers are connecting through these styles of communication. Ways that all layers can connect. All these different aspects of our consciousness are having their own unique experience. Parts are having their own experience. Aspects of the body are having their own experience. Our memories and associations are floating around. There's so many different things happening. How can we connect all these layers of our consciousness into a singular experience? Whew. Yeah, we ran. There are 5 core ways of connecting all aspects of our consciousness that we have discovered, and they all have profound healing abilities. Because our consciousness is so spread out, having so many unique aspects of experience simultaneously, yet not always in communication with one another directly in a way that we can understand, it can be tricky. How do we bring all of this together? So there's 5 core ways that we've discovered. One is breathing. When we breathe and we bring our conscious awareness to our breath, we bring our subconscious parts to the sensation of presence, and we encourage our bodily system to breathe deeper and more naturally than it might automatically be doing as we're moving through our days. We connect all these layers of our consciousness into a singular healing moment. Another amazing way is crying. Crying, sobbing, tears flowing, let the floodgates just break open. When we cry, our awareness knows about what's happening. Our subconscious parts get to express their emotions, and our body is like purging. It's just like, here, have some magic liquid that just like releases things from me. It's engaging all these layers of our consciousness in one singular moment of simultaneous engagement. And then the 3 other ways are singing, chanting, and dancing. When we are using our body, we are dancing, we are moving, we are consciously with our experience, our subconscious is expressing the emotions, and our body is moving. We're connecting all aspects of our consciousness in a singular experience. Chanting, when we're chanting, we're consciously choosing to create these vocal vibrations, connecting with the emotional sensations of our subconscious parts and using the miracle of our vocal vibrations to create a moment of healing. When we sing, we do the same thing. So that is my presentation. I would love to hear feedback, what questions you might have, if there's anything that you want clarifying on, any questions you have, just kind of open the floor up to connect this information with yourself so that you can move forward in your days carrying this knowledge with you instead of it just being having, like a one-time class that you learned about, actually having it be information you can carry with you and personally connect with who you are. So I'd love to hear any questions or comments or thoughts you guys may have. So feel free to unmute yourselves and chime in, and we'll just hang out for a little bit.
So, for a lot of other people, they would probably call the ego everything in the diamond. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that's a great question. The traditional discussions of ego, and some people have the perspective of you need to kill off the ego, but no, the truth is you integrate the ego, because without the ego, you're not a person in the world. I went that route, and I was like, the ego is bad, but then I'm like, I don't know who I am in the world. I'm just this floating blob of energy, and I'm love, light, and miracles, but I don't actually have my own individuality in the world. Like, what good is all this miracles if I'm not doing nothing with it? So you need the ego, but in an integrated way where parts are working together rather than separately.
Yeah.
And also the bringing the memories and associations into a place of conscious meaning. There's unconscious meaning making happening all the time, But when we can bring those stories into conscious awareness and do something with them intentionally, then we're making this something we can work with rather than something we just kind of have to live with.
That is the shadow work, really. Getting that understanding between the conscious awareness and everything else in the triangle.
Yes, absolutely. And we talk about shadow self as being those aspects of ourselves beyond awareness, because they're not bad. Like, just because they have darkness doesn't make them bad. That's a meaning-making judgment association created by our left brain hemisphere to try to understand the world with more control. And we don't need that. We really don't need that. Darkness is not bad. It's just the other side of the coin of light.
Yeah, so important.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, awesome. Go for it, my friend.
Okay, so I was just wondering about like guardian parts being in the left brain.
Yes.
Because like the way I feel like I learned about it before, it was like normal life self is like left brain, and then like the rest were in the right brain. So yeah, I guess that's my question, and like, because you know, like for instance, with like fight parts, and you think about like, you know, like experiences like rage and stuff like that, and like I feel like that's why I'm having trouble like connecting it with like the left brain.
No, absolutely. No, it's a great question. So a lot of times when we feel rage, it's a secondary emotion. And so that's actually our guardians responding to something from the left brain. Rage and anger are never a core emotion. They are always a secondary emotion, which means they're coming from another emotion. And so if we're feeling something in the right brain, then our left brain might make a judgment about that and then feel the intensity of the rage. And the interaction and experience of it might be right brain hemisphere, but that's because it's not an isolated experience. Guardian parts are activated because there's activation here. So maybe the direction of the rage comes from here and the intensity is felt over here, but it's only being felt with the intensity because of the judgment that's coming here. There's this, you know, bilateral engagement processing unconsciously. And, you know, it might not be a completely exact thing, you know, like the brain is very complex. And so this activation doesn't mean there's not activation elsewhere also. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, rage and anger are always a secondary emotion that are reacting to something. Why are you angry? There's a deeper emotion from the right brain, and often the rage comes from the way the left brain is trying to understand it. For, you know, trauma recovery as an example, I'm feeling all these body sensations and I feel rage because this means that someone hurt me at some point and they're out there living scot-free and I'm still here feeling the pain that they caused. And that's where the rage is coming from. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Do you have any other questions about that? Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, friends.
I don't know whether this is going to be a comment or a question, but this is making me think about the students that I teach who are on the lower end of the autism spectrum. And how I used to call it was that children on the autism spectrum, they don't care about social norms, is what I used to call it. Now, as we have discussed all of these parts of the subconscious, unconscious, and conscious, the forebrain talks about normalcy and what's acceptable. So what would be how would you describe the experience of someone with an autistic brain and how, like, maybe their brain is being, like, that part of their brain is affected or something's been changed in the forebrain part. Mm-hmm. Because they feel, from my experience, they feel all the other parts are there. Mm-hmm. When I experienced my students, but the part that is aware of their surroundings and then the response of what is the correct thing to do in this moment at this time. Like you gave an example of, I'm just going to feel like dancing right now or singing right now, and even though I'm in the middle of the street or I'm somewhere where it's quiet, I'm just going to do something, whatever. My kids, there's not that sense of there's not a careness about that. Mm-hmm. Like that's not there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how you would describe an autistic brain from your diagram.
That's a
and
good,
how that's different.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, and I appreciate that question. I would have to do more research to speak on the neuroscience part of it, but as far as abstract subconscious parts, my perspective would be that their parts are having isolated experiences. If they sense a sensation and become, overwhelmed by stimulus, as one example, the left brain or forebrain or guardian parts and normal parts might not be explaining what the sensations are. And so they're just getting bombarded by sensations and feelings, and they don't know what it actually means. And so it can be overwhelming or upsetting or anxiety-provoking or disorienting. And then when there's fits of rage or like little outbursts of stuff going on, that could also potentially be parts not fully able to connect with one another, where they feel something and they don't know why, or they're feeling these things and they can't explain it and they're mad because they can't communicate what's actually happening. And maybe they're not even aware that that's why they're mad, because it is happening in the subconscious, but there's all these things and they just want to connect, but they don't really have the tools and that kind of thing. That would kind of be my general thoughts, but I would have to kind of do more research to know more.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because most of my kids they're nonverbal. Yeah. So that part in general, to make judgment or to communicate thoughts and feelings, is that connection isn't there. So they're experiencing all of this stuff, but there's no way to
bring that out,
be able to make it come out, and there's a block or something. Yeah. And so that can cause other things to take place. Yeah. Like finding other ways to communicate. So then it's like this part, the speaking, the mouth is not the central part of communication anymore. So, would you say like the forebrain part for someone on the spectrum could be something else other than using the mouth, like a physical thing or something else that could replace it?
Yes, that is a beautiful question. I am so sorry. One moment of pause. My phone charger stopped working.
Sounds a lot like what you're describing, that the communication through the normal part isn't happening, and the other parts are communicating directly to the body. So they're expressing themselves without observing what they're expressing through a normal part. So it almost sounds like those connections are kind of broken from those parts to the normal part. Or not happening as well.
Yeah, that's just something I really always wanted to dive into myself, was to understand the autistic brain. I have a lot of people on the spectrum that I am friends with, people that are diagnosed with Asperger's. So that's a higher functioning form of autism. So there's an increased self-awareness. There's an increased sense of what's normal or not normal for them. But I teach in the severe area. So the communication is completely not there.
Yeah.
So I'm just something that, this is fascinating to me, this forebrain part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's that main thing that lets us know, oh, this is what they're feeling and think. Because that's, we don't know unless you say something, It's, so, like, what's their forebrain part? Like, what's that part that, and these kids, some of them are aware of it, but they still can't speak.
Yeah.
Because there's a connection that's not there. There's something that's not in this diagram of consciousness. Something is not, like, maybe it's I like to call kids on the spectrum as like they have a different kind of brain. But I don't know what that would mean,
Right.
So these are the things I always want.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your heart of wanting to understand. The world needs more of that, more of just creating space for the differences that we all live with. I like to describe a uniquely developed consciousness as divergently developed, where the development process underwent a different direction from the norm. So divergently developed is kind of the term that I use personally. And so, again, I'd have to do more research on the neuroscience before I speak on the actual fact-based brain of the particular experience. But your question was about how they might be able to communicate without having the direct communication, right? So, the ways that parts communicate are through implicit language. Our normal part, through our awareness, is the core part that would contribute through this kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see. How do I see the message? That's fun. What words like the message? I don't know how to see it. I see it. I've heard of some people with nonverbal autism being able to communicate through choosing letters and spelling. Ooh, that's cool. Thank you, Renata, for sharing. That's awesome. Ooh, I like that. I wonder if that's something to explore.
So what I was going to say is the normal parts are the core parts who communicate through explicit language. The majority of our consciousness communicates through implicit language, which are things like moving the body and creating sound. When I sit here and I go, ooh, I'm not speaking to you, but I'm communicating something somehow, right? And it might not be a direct thing where you're like, oh yes, I understand what you're trying to say, but it's communication. You're understanding some form of energetic connection. And so a couple thoughts. One might be letting go of the need for there to be explicit communication. Maybe someone will never get to a place where they say, this is how I feel and this is what I think, but maybe they can show you and you can feel that. So maybe kind of re-exploring what communication looks like. And we learned that 93% of the way we experience communication anyways has nothing to do with what's being said, but the way it's being said.
If I look at you and I soften my voice and I adjust the way that my eyes are moving and I use my muscles and my vocal inflection and my eye gaze,
I'm communicating a much different conversation than if I do something like this. That's an aspect of implicit language. And so the way that we present our bodies actually has a lot more to do with communication than what we're
Right.
saying. And so creating space to explore that can be one thing. Like during preschool the other day, my mom had a new little boy. He's just this beautiful little miraculous child. And he was having a really tough time. And we're pretty sure that he is on the spectrum, but not yet diagnosed. And so he had this experience where everyone's peacefully drawing and coloring, and he just can't engage. He's screaming, he's throwing tantrums, he can't be at the table, he can't sit there. And so we finally got him to a place where he could come over through a lot of just gentle work of connection, and got to a place. He's at the table now, but he's not coloring. And I can tell he's just got tension inside of him. And you can't really focus if you're tense. Like, oh, let me draw and color versus those two things don't go together very well. You can't do this if you're feeling this. And so I said, just grab the paper and crumple it up. And his smile, his face just lit up because I got him. I got that he didn't give a crap about coloring some picture because he was feeling all of these feelings and he just needed somewhere to put the feelings. And so that's a big part of it. To my friends, would subconscious and the different parts still be the same with an inflamed brain, with the left being normal but the right being inflamed? That's a great question. Different flow of things will affect the brain functionality and the flow of things. So for one example, I had some pretty severe head trauma where my skull bones were out of place and the cerebral spinal fluid and all the other stuff that was flowing to help the brain communicate with itself wasn't quite working well. It wasn't quite flowing to all the corners and all the way that it was supposed to. And so the messages of my mind were getting jumbled. So it didn't like directly damage parts, but it was damaging the ability for communication between the aspects of parts. So parts are still their own like miraculous things. Our memories are still these miraculous things, but the way everything's communicating can kind of get a little jumbled in things. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah, that's a good question, friend. That's a good question too. And so communication has a lot to do with implicit language and connecting with sensations. I don't need to understand why that little boy was frustrated. I don't need an explanation. I don't need him to communicate the specifics, but I can sense what he's feeling and create space for him to feel that. And when I do that, I am communicating with him directly. Does that help at all? Do you have any questions about that?
Definitely does. No, that definitely does. That is something that I do, and I just liked hearing from your perspective, and that you had that moment to connect with a child with autism, or that you are suspecting that has autism. You can't communicate. You have to sort of meet at a point where you like what is it called? Well, it's like meeting them at their level, or at the level of, it's like when you're teaching students, teach to where they understand. You know, it's not the students having to figure out where the teacher is and how they're talking and trying to figure it out. So what I do a lot is I'm always doing that. It's not about what they're saying. It's that it's impossible for me to do that. It's always through the implicit stuff going on. And then once there's an outlet, you find like an outlet somewhere, then, you know, things are more free flowing in a sense. So, yeah, what you said just kind of validated some stuff for me that I do already, but to hear it from you is really cool. I just wanted to, because, you know, with this diagram, it would be interesting to see, like, exactly, you know, how similar or different things connect with each other, you know?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
how they communicate, like how the different parts communicate with each other. But I just had that main question about the forebrain specifically, just through the basic communication part.
Yeah, and
That's
I'll
But
make
you
a
did
note
answer
of
my
that.
question.
Oh man.
Uh-oh, you're...
Did I come back?
You know what this whole conversation reminds me of, and anybody with, for me with CPTSD and anybody with DID, it reminds me of emotional flashbacks. Basically, when our front brain goes offline, and all we have then are these emotions, emotional communications from these parts. And we would ask somebody to let us crumple up a piece of paper or get mad or do something in those moments. And I know that from, my own emotional flashbacks from parts. It's almost like a transient autism.
Interesting that you say something like that. That's interesting. Because I just feel like everything is connected anyway. Being autistic, being this. It's all still has to do with the same thing. Yeah. I like that Nigel brought that up because that's so true. My mind is being blown right now that he said that. That's really interesting. We'll all have times when absolutely we cannot logically be logical or communicate, and it's all everything else. And we love to crumple up a paper and punch something and
right.
That is exactly.
Yeah.
Because our forebrain has gone offline, and our protectors are only left there by themselves to directly communicate with the body, not through a normal part and the conscious awareness. Because that's gone for a while.
Absolutely. And during emotional flashbacks too, a lot of times the left brain hemisphere also becomes deactivated. And so our experience is solely or primarily coming from our right brain hemisphere, which is all pictures, images, and sensations, and our hindbrain, which has all our infinite memory and all these things, but with no awareness, zero awareness. And so to have that flood of sensations without being able to put it in a descriptive way and in a linearized story and in verbal narrative, it's very overwhelming, and it's a part of the miraculous human experience that a lot of people experience regardless of the specificities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Wonderful. I love it. Good conversations. Awesome. Are there any more questions before we wrap up our time together?
It's just been excellent. It's been really good.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so blessed to hear that. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm really grateful for this time. I love the diagram. Thank you so much, soul friends. I'm so grateful for you all. Thanks. Also, that teaching topic is so true because I'm sort of the same. Absolutely. Yeah, we all share these aspects of the human condition. My grandma, for example, has a form of dementia just because she's getting up there in her years, and she's in her 90s, and she's had a variety of health battles anyways over the years. And so her brain's just kind of started to deteriorate. And her experiences mimic, almost identical sometimes, some of my dissociative experiences. And so here we are in completely different generations, completely different aspects of experience, completely different experience of our bodies, like, different stuff going on, completely different reason for the experience. And yet the experience neurophysiologically is very, very similar, where her left brain and front brain aren't totally engaged, my left brain and front brain aren't totally engaged, and our experience is being processed through our right brain and our hindbrain. And so there's been moments where I could tell what was happening in my grandma's mind by observing her eyes and the way she was perceiving her own experience internally and connecting with the mirror sensations that were coming up in my consciousness and verbally communicate that to my mom and my uncle and explain what she was going through so that we could connect these worlds that were not connected, and explain aspects of why she was saying the things she was saying, why she was asking the questions she was asking, what she was feeling when this was happening, why her vocal inflection was changing, what she could visually see in these moments, and all these different things. And we're completely different people, different generations, different physical health stuff, and yet the experience of consciousness had so many similarities. Is there a way to activate the different parts of subconscious to understand trauma better and become stronger? I love that question. I love that question. I'm going to read it one more time. It is so good. Is there a way to activate the different parts of consciousness, subconscious, to understand trauma and become stronger? Truly profound. I could do a whole class just on that. Yes. There's actually a lot of different ways, which is kind of a different topic for another time because I could literally talk for hours about that. But each part has their own aspect of things. So for one example, facial expressions and coming back to their core needs. So if the core desire of Moppet parts is moments of awe and wonder and imaginative play, then a facial expression like this would connect with them. And choosing to make the facial expression is one thing, but creating space for experiences where these facial features are naturally evoked is a much more effective way. And so one thing you could do is just kind of be mindful of what's happening in your muscles throughout the day, and then kind of create moments where you can be with yourself and evoke different facial feature responses. And so a moment of just joy or wonder or surprise or awe, like, whoa, that would connect with Moppet parts and kind of just bring them into the moment, help them to release whatever pain might be coming up, and just have a new experience, create a new memory with a new association, and kind of connect with that part. And the Nightingale parts, their core desire, appreciation, and emotional safety. So something that shows concern and connection, like a facial feature like this of just concern and connection and compassion and appreciation. Like, I love you guys. This kind of facial feature would often connect with Nightingale parts. And so if you can do a mirror meditation where you're looking at yourself and you just look in your eyes at the love, light, and miracles that you are, and just give compassion to yourself through that momentary interaction of, you're doing your best, I appreciate you. That's going to help connect with Nightingale parts and giving our parts love so they receive love, and so the love that's been given is appreciated, can really help heal this half of our subconscious. And then normal parts are great at observing. And so when we meditate and we connect with an ability to observe and not identify, like my favorite meditation practice to just come to a nice place of visualization is a meditative boat practice. And you visualize yourself in a pretty little lake, wherever you want. You can decorate the landscape of your surrounding nature however you want to. And so you're in this nice boat, and you're just in this nice boat, and all of the thoughts and feelings and sensations that are happening in your body-brain system that usually just become your entire experience, you kind of just breathe through that and put them in thought bubbles floating in the water. So you're sitting in your boat, and you're kind of just noticing what's around you. There's some beautiful trees in the distance. There's a nice bird just peacefully gliding across the sky. Then you look to the water, and there's these really like hilarious, awesome little thought bubbles that are floating in the water, like their own little thing. And each one houses a thought or sensation. And creating space to observe things without identifying or reacting can help connect with normal parts and kind of bring them into a place of healing and tap into their abilities of consciousness. And then guardian parts are, they need respect and physical safety. So two different ways that you could connect with guardian parts. One is relaxing the muscles in your body. So doing a very specific meditation where you're breathing deeply and bringing the awareness to your muscles relaxing. Start with your toes, start with your feet, kind of move your way up the aspects of your legs and just kind of feel your muscles relaxing is one way. And then another way is to express the rage they have and their demand for respect. One way I like to do this is shadow dancing, which is just finding a nice place where I can dance with my shadow. So whether it's outside and the sun is helping create a shadow on the ground, or whether it's at night and there's a light behind me that's just helping create a shadow on the ground, bringing my awareness to presence with my shadow and dancing and letting the rage and all the feelings and the demand for respect and all the arguments come out in these body movements of asserting myself. And when I do that, I'm connecting with them and their confidence and their courage and their strength, and I'm helping them release any pain that they might have trapped in their aspect of consciousness. So, I hope that helps. We'll have time for just one more question if anybody has anything. We're hitting on the 2-hour mark though, so we are going to wrap it up, but we have time for one more question if anybody has something. Otherwise, we will call it a day. Feeling good? Feeling like you get it? Just a little bit, maybe like a teeny tiny bit, maybe like a teeny tiny bit, a little bit.
I know I have another question, but it's not in the front right now.
It's hanging out in one of your other parts.
I have millions of questions.
No, that's
but
perfect.
I can't think of it right now.
No, that's wonderful.
I feel like my one question or whatever it was like it went off into this really wonderful discussion. I was just like, I loved it. It's awesome.
I love it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. In your little workbooks, towards the back, there are these pages of journal prompts. Let me make sure you guys can see it on this camera. So you got these pages of journal prompts. So it's 2 pages with 2, 4, 6, 8 prompts all together. And there's a little space for you to write. If you want to write more than that, you can go in your own personal journal. But creating space for reflection is important because all of this information is existing in part of your brain right now, but it's not automatically getting through to every corner of your consciousness. And when we can allow for information to permeate us deeper than the automatic tendency, then we kind of gain a little bit more power in the situation. So I encourage you guys to just take some time today, maybe this week even, to just spend some time in reflection. Like, what did you learn? What things confuse you? What things excite you? What things make sense of things? What things bring up more questions? And then there's those 8 prompts to kind of guide you through a process of reflection, to really take this information and continue integrating it into your everyday healing journey of life. All right, wonderful. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, 2 to go to.
Thank you.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, friend.
Bye. Bye.
Wait, no, we're not
Bye,
done yet.
everyone.
One more thing.
Bye.
One more thing. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we were wrapped up before finishing it with the best thing ever. Okay. We just did a deep dive into consciousness. You just spent 2 hours of your life investing in befriending the consciousness that carries you. Everyone just straighten up your posture a little bit and feel a little bit of pride in what you have accomplished. Everyone put your hand in the air and then go ahead and bring this other hand and go, hoppa! Oh yeah, up top. And do it again to the other side. Bring your hand up, just, oh yeah, hota! Oh yeah, we did it. We did the things. And now let's just do a little nice round of applause. Let's go ahead and just bring this applause into a circular motion. Oh yeah, and let's rotate in the other direction. Just a round of applause. And let's wrap it all up and just give yourself a nice big hug with a solid squeeze and just say, I am so proud of me.
I'm so proud of
me.
Awesome. I love you guys. I'm proud of you. This is a huge victory throughout your everyday healing journey of life. and I feel so grateful and honored to have spent this time with you. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. I will email you a video link with the recording of this, not from the Zoom chat perspective, but from my laptop view, so it kind of got me talking so you can have the info. And just feel free to just carry this knowledge in and see how it kind of makes sense of stuff and where you can kind of use it and play with it and all sorts of things. So I will see you next time. I have lots of good stuff. I have a 5 or 6 month group coaching program that will be launching in a few months. It's going to be a place where we really use this knowledge to reclaim our personal power in our everyday healing journey of life, discover dozens of ways to directly communicate and work with our parts, create daily rituals to sustain our health, continuing, learn about where our power is and how to harness it, all sorts of goodies. And I also do one-on-one coaching if you ever want to look into that. And at the end of the workbook are a bunch of links, and you can click on those directly from your PDF document. We have all sorts of good content where we're sharing information. And yeah, I'm grateful for you. I love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time, soul friends.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye, my friends. Bye, my
I love
friends.
you.
I love you too, my friends. Bye, my friends. Bye, my
Yeah,
friends.
exactly. I was gonna do
Bye,
that.
Bye, my friends. I see you later, my friends. Have a good day, my friends. At a dance party, my friends. I see you later.
Wonderful.